To this episode of Daily Conversations with Jeremiah Patterson. Technically, this is the Jeremiah Patterson Show. Once again, once we go through our 90-day pass with YouTube, we'll be able to officially confirm our name as the Jeremiah Patterson Show. So this is day 32 of the government shutdown. TSA agents are not getting paid. Federal employees are not getting paid. At that, let me be exact just for you. 800,000 federal employees are not being paid because Donald Trump, our president, 45th president in office, has shut down the government. Donald Trump is the unhinged and unpresidential president, in my opinion, but of course others can agree otherwise with me. Thanks for joining us. Check out our podcast, The Jeremiah Patterson Show. We will have that linked in the description down below after this live coverage is off. So as we continue to follow up that story of our government shutdown, as I just mentioned, TSA agents are not getting paid. Homeland Security is not getting paid. The following departments are not getting paid due to this really month-long government shutdown. I read in New York Times this morning about 5 o'clock a.m. that a Department of Agriculture employee, she's a federal employee for the United States Department of Agriculture, and she's not being paid by the federal government because the federal government is shut down due to the President of the United States. So she had to do an Uber job. Most federal employees are worried about surviving. There are food kitchens opening for FBI agents because, once again, the federal government has shut down. This also includes the State Department. State Department employees are not getting paid. Treasury Department, Defense Department, the Department of Justice, Interior Department, Agriculture Department, Commerce Department, Labor Department, Health and Human Services Department, Housing and Urban Development Department, Department of Transportation, Energy, Education, Veteran Affairs, and Homeland Security. All of those departments are not getting paid, including federal workers in the United States government, including TSA, and all of those agencies who fall under Homeland Security. So once again, all these people are not getting paid due to the 32nd day of this government shutdown. Once again, the State Department, Treasury Department, Defense Department, Department of Justice, Interior, Agriculture, Commerce, Labor, Health and Human Services, Housing and Urban Development, Transportation, Energy, Education, Veteran Affairs, and Homeland Security. And those are departments. Those are the federal departments that work under the presidential cabinet. The Vice President, Speaker of the House, President Pro Tempore of the Senate, Secretary of State, Secretary of the Treasury, Secretary of Defense, Attorney General, Secretary of the Interior, Secretary of Agriculture, Secretary of Commerce, Secretary of Labor, Secretary of Health and Human Services, Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, Secretary of Transportation, Secretary of Energy, Secretary of Education, Secretary of Veteran Affairs, and finally, Secretary of Homeland Security. All of those federal employees are not getting paid due to this now month-long government shutdown. There has never been a government shutdown this long. This is yet the longest government shutdown in history. America has never seen anything like this. The government has never been shut down for so long, which is why people don't know how to contain to contain themselves in this such event. And as the government continues to be shut down, these federal employees are not getting paid. They're not getting once all of this goes out, they're not getting their food. Their electricity could go out. They could lose their cell phone bill could just go out because they don't have enough money to feed off of. Who knows? This government shutdown may last for the rest of this year. Unfortunately, 6 months. This is, once again, the 32nd day of the government shutdown. The government shutdown began, I believe it was December 24th. No, it was not December 24th. I believe the government shutdown began December 23rd is when this government shutdown began. And now it is January 22nd. So we are in the 32nd day of this government shutdown. This is the 32nd day of the government shutdown. It's a long shutdown. Unfortunately, it's still going on. Unfortunately. down to make other information. Black History Month is coming up. We will do our reporting on here too. Also, well, not really on here as well, but on our podcast, we're doing a special event called the 28 Days of February. It's a big event that my team and I are working on to put together for you. The 28 Days of February. We're going to be covering lots of important African American people. I'm going to get that list for you guys right now. Okay, so reporting on that list, the first two people that we'll be covering is Katherine J. Johnson, and we will also be covering Thurgood Marshall, and then we'll be covering day one, Katherine Johnson, Thurgood Marshall, plus the history of Black history, plus the news. Day 2, Rosa Parks and Another Story / news. Day 3, Slavery / news. Day 4, Harriet Tubman / news. Day 5, Frederick Douglass / news. Day 6, Martin Luther King / news. Day 7, Jesse Owens / news. Day 8, George Washington Carver / news. Day 9th, Jackie Robinson / news. Day 10, Barack Obama, our nation's 44th U.S. president / news. Day 11, Coretta Scott King and Betty Shabazz / news. Day 12, Maya Angelou / news. Day 13, Michelle Obama / news. Day 14, Sarah Boone / news. Day 15, Richard Wright / news. Day 16, Mary Jackson / news. Day 17, Fannie Lou Hamer / news. Day 18, Alex Haley / news. Day 19, Garrett Morgan / news. Day 20, Medgar Evers / news. Day 21, Joe Louis / news. Day 22, Nelson Mandela / news. Day 23, Paul Robeson / news. Day 24, Prince / news. Day 25, we are still working on day 25, but news will be reported on that day. Day 26, Bessie Smith / news. Day 27th, Gabby Douglas / news, and we saved the best for last. Day 28, Aretha Franklin and Whitney Houston. You may not agree with me there, but those are all of our list. All the way to 28 days. So we have that coming up. And guys, on March 2nd, yes, March 2nd, let me see if that's correct, just confirm that. Yes, March 2nd, we'll be doing our special sex trafficking coverage. We're going to be talking about sex trafficking for a full hour. We may have special guests on the show for that coverage. We may have Terry Wayne and Cooper Smith, host and co-host of Immature Politics, as they are describing our nation's politics right now. And then we're also going to do called Month of the First Ladies. We're going to be covering First Ladies all through March. We may not do it every day, but we will be covering First Lady Jacqueline Bouvier Kennedy. We'll be covering First Lady Michelle Obama, First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt, First Lady Laura Bush. We'll be covering all of these First Ladies, especially since Woodrow Wilson, I believe Woodrow Wilson was our nation's 21st president. When Woodrow Wilson was our nation's 21st president, you could say he had a lot of wives. Okay, so he was 6. So Edith Wilson, I believe, was Woodrow Wilson's wife. Yes, Edith Wilson was one of Woodrow Wilson's wives. Okay, so Edith Wilson. Edith Wilson, we'll be covering her. If you guys did not know that Woodrow Wilson was president during the Women's March when Susan B. Anthony, an activist, fought for women to get the right to vote. Michelle Obama once said, quote, "Several first ladies of more recent vintage have left indelible impressions too." Did you know that one of our nation's presidents, wasn't George Herbert Walker Bush? Let me recall. Our nation's 32nd president, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, was friends with our nation's, it's not 30th president, I'm not sure. But he was friends with our other nation's president, Theodore Roosevelt. I was about to say Teddy Roosevelt, but same thing. Theodore Roosevelt. He was president. He was cousins with Theodore Roosevelt for a long time. I thought they were brothers when I was studying presidential history in the second grade. This topic fascinates me. Okay, so Ellen Wilson, I'm sorry, I may have corrected myself here. So Ellen Wilson and Edith Wilson, okay, so he did not have a lot of wives. But when he was sick, these two powerful and incredibly highly intelligent women took over the office. I did not know if that was possible. I don't know if they should have had a vice president put in the, I don't know if the presidential cabinet was fully established at that time in history in the 1913s or the decade of the 1910s. Okay, so Ellen Wilson was not Woodrow Wilson's daughter. Excuse me for that mistake there. Ellen Wilson was the eldest daughter of a Presbyterian minister. Ellen Wilson was an intelligent and creative and a talented artist, every bit her husband's Woodrow. Intellectual equal. She was also a delightful wife as Woodrow moved from successful academic to governor of New Jersey and then to the White House in 1913. She served as first lady for only 17 months, suffering from much. Oh my God. She suffered a kidney, which would take her life in August 1914. Even during her illness, she lobbied for legislation that would ameliorate the abysmal conditions under which African Americans were living in Washington, D.C. The alley dwelling bill, popular known as Mrs. Wilson's bill, was passed as she lay dying. Her open political involvement in support of legislative goals marked her as a pioneering first lady well before her time. Edith Wilson. It would be hard to imagine a first lady more difficult from Ellen Wilson than the woman who became Woodrow Wilson's wife as a scant 60 months after Ellen's death. Before she met Woodrow Wilson in 1915, Edith knew next to nothing about politics. She later acknowledged that she did not know who had run for president in 1912. Historians continued to debate Edith's role in the 17th months after Woodrow suffered a massive stroke in October of 1919. I did tell you he was going to get sick. But from the moment Edith entered the White House, she sat in on a moment of his important meetings with advisors and cabinet members, and hence was familiar with many of the most important policy questions of the day. With her husband seriously incapacitated, might Woodrow's vigorous bright have exerted considerably influenced over his decisions? We will never know for sure. Ellen Wilson was Woodrow Wilson's son. Ellen Wilson was Woodrow Wilson's wife. She died of a kidney. Edith Wilson was also Woodrow Wilson's wife. Once again, it says, quote, Woodrow's vigorous bride have exerted considerably influence over his decisions. will we ever know for sure? Sorry, we will never know for sure. Jesse, Margaret, and Eleanor. Jesse remained active in the Democratic Party politics and was stanch advocate for women's suffrage. Edith made the decisions about which matters her husband should attend to after the stroke. Okay, so Ellen Wilson and Edith Wilson. I don't know if you can see the clear picture here, but this was all of them. Edith Wilson, Ellen Wilson, Margaret and Eleanor Wilson on the side there, along with their two to-be mothers along there on the side. That's all of them, I believe. Laura Bush, our nation's First Lady. She was under President George Walker Bush, our nation's 43rd president. And George Walker Bush was George Herbert Walker Bush's son. Portrait that I have on my wall there. One of my favorite presidents, next to Ronald Reagan and John Fitzgerald Kennedy, our nation's 35th president and 40th president, there. Ronald Reagan suffered from a lot, and he died in June 15th of 2004, I believe. It might have been June 4th or 6th of 2004. Nancy Reagan died in 2016 due to such causes of health, or I think she died of age. Behind me is George Herbert Walker Bush, George Herbert Walker Bush was our nation's 41st president. He fought in wars. He was a POW hero for the United States Navy. He was just amazing. With all of this history that we have gathered up and just thrown into the book here, this is our show. And Pat Nixon, First Lady to China. First Lady, well, they called her First Lady to China because China was one of the 83 nations Pat visited during her 5 years as First Lady. This trip with husband Richard Nixon took place in 1972. Richard Nixon was impeached on August 22nd, I believe is 9th. Gerald Ford was sworn in on August 9th, our nation's 38th president. So that makes Nixon our nation's 36th president, which means Gerald Ford was sworn in on the 9th. Sorry, I got a little confused there. So, look out for this, the First Ladies of the month. That's coming soon on our podcast, The Jeremiah Patterson Show, during March. We're also going to be covering sex trafficking once again. We're going to be covering sex trafficking. A full hour covering sex trafficking on that note there. Hi, Christopher. So we are going to be covering that, and also look forward to the 28 days of February, which we're also going to be covering on our show. The 28 days of February will be about all of these amazing people that I've just mentioned. Rosa Parks, slavery, Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass, Martin Luther King, Jesse Owens, George Washington Carver, Jackie Robinson, Barack Obama, Coretta Scott King, and Betty Shabazz, Maya Angelou, Michelle Obama, Sarah Boone, Richard Wright, Mary Jackson, Fannie Lou Hamer, Alex Haley, Katherine J. Johnson / Thurgood Marshall / news. All of these will have news in the reports when we do it on our podcast. Alex Haley / news, Garrett Morgan / news, Medgar Evers / news, Day 21, Joe Lewis. Day 22, Nelson Mandela. Day 23, Paul Robeson. Day 24, Prince. Day 25, Garrett Morgan. Day 26, Bessie Smith. Day 27, Gabby Douglas. And day 28, we saved the best for last, Aretha Franklin and Whitney Houston. So those are our days for the 28 days of February. So now on to our president's part. Okay, did you know that President John Adams, and our nation's 6th president, I believe it was to be, John Quincy Adams, were one of the only presidents John Quincy Adams, John Adams, and George Walker Bush and George Herbert Walker Bush it was the only son and father relationship as president of the United States there. James Madison, our nation's 43rd president, president from 1751 to 1836. I think he lived from 1751 to 1836. James Madison was also one of our nation's presidents, possibly the most even-tempered and fair-minded. His wife, Dolly Madison, saved the portrait from burning in the White House, the portrait of George Washington. And that is our broadcast. I'll have the link to our podcast, The Jeremiah Patterson Show, linked in the description down below. Thank you for watching this video on Daily Conversations with Jeremiah Patterson. Until then, see you next time. Bye.